Today is a big day, people, because today I will award the most coveted prize in the entire bike industry. The Supplest Bike of the Year award. First annual, granted, but still coveted, right? So what is a bike that I feel best embodies this idea of suppleness? A bike that is versatile, has ninja-like shape-shifting capabilities to be both fun, responsive, but also useful. A bike that is multifaceted, multi-talented, and is a true quiver killer. One that is not only supple in its mere tire width, but in all its uses. Find out finally in this video. Welcome back, Pathless Peddlers, and if you're new to the channel, if you love bike commuting, gravel riding, bike touring, the Supple life, then you have found your people. Hit that subscribe button. So, I got a chance to ride a lot of bikes this year. When I first started out, I had the mere goal of riding the Journeyman, the Gorilla Monsoon, and Midnight Special, and I did that. And then came the other bikes. So in total, I test rode and created video reviews for over 25 bicycles. And during this time, it's helped me formulate my opinion of what I like in a bike, and also understand how geometry tweaks really alter the handling of a bike. So by testing all these bikes, I've developed I feel like a pretty good palette for how different bikes ride, and have narrowed down those kind of elusive qualities that I like in a bike. But before we start, I want to share with you guys a number. So this is exactly how much I got paid by bike brands this year to review their bike. So anyone that knows me personally knows that I take this stuff actually pretty seriously. It's my goal with this channel and with these reviews to not just be a mere marketing tool, a shill for the bike industry, but I'd like to think I'm providing a service by riding all these different bikes, talking about how they relate to each other, so that you guys who might not have a chance to ride all these bikes because of availability at least know what they're actually like. And that's why I created the Supple spreadsheet that I talked about in the last video. What really keeps this channel going is your guys' support, the people that support us on Patreon. You guys are amazing. The people that support us on PayPal, you guys are also amazing. You guys keep this channel as independent as possible. I've been in the bike content creation game for over a decade. I've been published in Adventure Cycling, in Bicycle Times. We were written up in Bicycling Magazine, so we are not newbies to bike content creation. In all these years, I've always seen that uncomfortable discord between providing content, but also taking advertising from the same brands that you're reviewing. It's flawed, it raises lots of questions about trustworthiness and ethics, and that's why this number. So if you appreciate these reviews, consider supporting the channel. All that housekeeping aside, before we get to the most supplest bike of the year award, we're gonna take a little journey because there were lots of interesting bikes along the way. These are the bikes that made me say, These are bikes that changed my mind about how bikes can ride, and also challenged some kind of preconceived notions I had about particular bikes. So let's just call this the most interesting bikes of 2018 award. I don't know, is it an award? It's just a designation. So the first bike is the Midnight Special. This is actually a pretty cool bike. It takes that road responsiveness and geometry, but combines it with supple tires. This is something that I think until like this year didn't really exist. Typically you would get bikes that could take bigger tires, but everything was really slack and more touring oriented. But with the Midnight Special, you got a quick and fun bike that also had a supple ride and also had mounts to carry things. So it was pretty close to being the supplest bike of the year, but got edged out by another bike. Not to mention the fork is just ugly. Sorry, Surly, the fork is ugly. You got to change the fork. So another really interesting bike that kind of challenged notions I had about bicycle design was the Ritchie Outback. And for me, it was the first steel frame bike that I had ridden that was production, but used kind of a little bit more sophisticated tubing, not the typical pipe tubing that you get in mass production bikes. It was lively, it was fun, but I think the most unique feature about it was actually the front end of the bike. It uses a non-tapered head tube. So nowadays, bikes usually have a big tapered head tube, which is supposed to provide stiffness and, kind of precision in steering, which it does, but also makes the front end stiff. The Ritchie, on the other hand, is not tapered, and you can actually feel that when you're riding. I was riding the, I believe, 700 by 40 Speedmax tires. So not as wide as some 650B tires I usually like to ride, but going down on rocky descents, you could feel that front end flex. It actually felt like having the Redshift shock stop stem on the bike without any suspension. It was just built in innate into the frame. So maybe all this innovation that we've been chasing the last couple years in tapered head tubes and an increased stiffness isn't necessarily the best thing for all riders. The third most interesting bike that gave me pause is actually the Jones short wheelbase complete, because dang it, it is such a fun bike. It's a bike that I actually wasn't really interested in until enough people said, hey, you should check this out. Typically, I'm more of a drop bar guy just because with flat bars, it aggravates my carpal tunnel. So it's a bike that goes against all my stated preferences, but still was a blast to ride. It doesn't have drop bars, it has the Jones bars. It's pretty heavy at 33 pounds stock, but when you get on it, it's just fun and nimble for such a big fat tire bike. It feels like an adult cruiser in the best possible way. It turns really well, I don't get any toe overlap. The front end steering manages to be really light despite the big tire contact patch. So again, super interesting bike, a bike I didn't think I would like, but actually changed my mind and my whole view about 27 plus size bike. So those are the three kind of standout bikes that gave me pause, bikes that were interesting to ride. Not quite all the way there to the most supple bike of the year award, but pretty close. So let's get on with it. So third runner-up is actually the Kona Robe NRB DL. Came in late in the season, one of the last gravel bikes I got a chance to review. One that many of you guys requested and took a while to get a hold of. But once it finally came and once I threw a leg over it, the bike was a blast to ride. The ride handling characteristics were spot on. It threaded that needle of being a responsive bike, but also a stable bike. It's actually one of the few bikes that Laura and I both agree on. Great geometry, comes stock as 650B, and it's truly designed around that wheel size without any compromises of being a multi-wheel size bike. Where it did lack was the utility. I wish the fork had some kind of mounts to put either a lowrider or at least a 3-pack mount. That definitely would have bumped it up a little bit higher on the list, but as it is, it's kind of regulated to kind of the day ride category for me. So the second runner-up for the most supplest bike of the year award is actually kind of a mishmash of two products, and it is the Endpoint coffee grinder frame with their hunter-gatherer fork. So Endpoint is a small brand. Their frames are made in the US by the, I think, BMX brand maker FMB, and the coffee grinder frame is a Road Plus road frame, so kind of really short and tucked geometry. So short wheelbase, really responsive. And the bike I rode, they paired with their hunter-gatherer fork, which is interesting. It's low trail, through axle disc, and has eyelets to run load riders and also a rando rack. So you're getting this really racy rear end with a super functional front end that's optimized for a front load. And the bike was an absolute blast to ride. It climbed really well, it descended really well, albeit a little bit on the squirrely side because of the general tuckness of everything, but super fun. And the only reason why it's the second runner-up is because of the rear tire clearance. As it is, 47 is about as wide as you can go. If it had clearance to run a 650B by 2.1, it would have been the perfect combination. Perfect combination. But because of that, unfortunately, not the most supplest bike of the year. So what's the bike that's going to take the most coveted award in all of the bike industry? So just to let you know, I had a real internal debate about this because I didn't want the most expensive bike I reviewed of the year to be the default best bike of the year, because I don't think that's necessarily the case. But in this instance, this bike does embody all those qualities that I like. It's responsive, it's quick, it's got big clearance, so you can run fatter tires and really get it dirty, take it on some tough terrain. But with all those performance attributes, it still had the ability to carry things and still had a lot of nice refinement to it. If you've been watching this review series, you know which bike I'm talking about. And that's right, the supplest bike of the year that takes home 5 supple stars is the breadwinner G-Road. So hopping on this bike, I had the same sensations I got when I rode the Ritchie Outback. It was a steel bike, but it was a nice quality steel, not overbuilt for mass production, but had the right amount of stiffness where you needed it without going overkill. It wasn't building for the lowest common denominator. The bike looked good, and even though it came with larger Schwalbe G1 tires, it was still quick and responsive, and descending with this bike was an absolute joy. And similar to the Kona Robe, this was a bike that both Laura and I actually really liked, because not only could it ride well unloaded, put load riders, 3-pack mounts, a rando rack, whatever you wanted to put on it. So not only was it fun, it was functional. It truly occupied that overlap in the Venn diagram of performance and utility. And for that reason, the Breadwinner G-Road is the supplest bike of the year, in my opinion, of 2018. All that said, it's not a cheap bike, and that's why I really debated about whether it should get the award, because it's gonna be out of the reach of so many. So after having ridden that, I really tried to seek out bikes that would give me a similar feel and function, but didn't cost as much. And honestly, right now, out of the box of all the bikes I've tried, nothing really comes close. Like I said, the Kona Rogue NRB DL, kind of close, but lacks those mounts in the front. The Endpoint coffee grinder comes close, doesn't have the clearance, but has the rack in the front and that fun responsive feel. Surly Midnight Special would probably come the closest, but I'd still swap out the fork. But there are options to put a bike together that approach something like the Breadwinner. So everyone, let's give the Breadwinner a round of applause. Yay! So that is my pick for the supplest bike of 2018. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you haven't checked it out, you should totally check out the Supple spreadsheet, because I break down the bikes by utility and also handling. I put bikes within a handling spectrum and compare them with other bikes. So if you like the ride of a particular bike, but you want it more responsive or more stable, you can kind of see this matrix and find the bike for you. And I know that it is missing a ton of bikes, so don't get your feelings hurt. I'm working on getting more bikes and am continuously adding to the list. But like I said in the beginning, if you guys find these videos helpful, entertaining, help you make decisions, and want to see me do more, want to see us do more, and talk about bikes in this way, then consider supporting the channel. Every bit helps. It keeps me motivated, makes me feel like I'm not wasting the best years of my life. So all that said, happy holidays, congratulations, Breadwinner, and keep the supple side down.